Nam. Don't get in the car. The words shattered the late afternoon buzz of Manhattan like glass under a hammer. For a heartbeat, everything froze. The honking cabs, the murmuring sidewalk chatter, the clicking heels of interns racing back from lunch. At the center of it all stood Olivia Harcourt, the sharp-eyed, sharp-tongued CEO of Harcourt Biomed, one of the most powerful pharmaceutical firms in the country. She was 12 minutes late to a closed-door meeting, one that didn't exist on any official calendar, and she was about to open the door to her armored limousine when that voice ripped through the air. The voice belonged to a janitor, a black man in a stained gray uniform, his face drenched in sweat, panic blazing in his eyes. His name was Marcus Bell, and he had just committed career suicide, or so everyone thought. "Please," he begged, ignoring the two bodyguards closing in on him like wolves. "You don't understand. The car's been compromised. You're walking into a setup." Olivia froze. The corporate predator in her wanted to wave him off, bury him in lawsuits. But the human in her? The sister of a brother in a locked-down hospital bed because of a mystery illness? She saw something in Marcus's face. Something too terrified to fake. This moment wasn't planned. It wasn't on any security protocol. But it would become the first domino in a chain of events that would rip open the truth behind Harcourt Biomed's most promising clinical trial. A truth that had been buried deep in silence, lies, and shredded paper. This is not just a scandal. It's a black story of truth clawing its way to light, told not through press releases, but through one man's refusal to stay silent. So before we dive deeper, before we walk into that car, or away from it, take a breath. And if you believe stories like this matter, hit subscribe. Stick around. The truth deserves more than a headline. Because sometimes, the janitor knows exactly where the bodies are buried. And when Marcus Bell yelled, "Don't get in the car," he wasn't trying to be a hero. He was trying to stop a murder. By day, Marcus Bell disappeared into the backdrop of Harcourt Biomed's glass and steel headquarters. Most people couldn't tell you his name, let alone what shift he worked. He moved through the building like a shadow, mopping, wiping, taking out the trash, always careful not to get in the way. Some nodded as he passed. Most didn't. And that was fine by Marcus. He preferred to be invisible. Because at night, long after the executive floors had gone dark and the conference rooms fell silent, Marcus was watching. Not in the paranoid way. Not in the conspiracy theorist sense. But with purpose. He was looking for something. And it all started with his daughter. Layla Bell was 8 years old, with a smile that could stop traffic and a brain brighter than any adult Marcus had ever met. She loved stars. Told him she wanted to be the first astronaut to paint the Milky Way from space. But then her hands started to shake. Just a little at first. Then more. Doctors called it synaptic regression disorder. WAIA. Aggressive. Terminal in most cases. There were no treatments. No options. At least, not officially. But Marcus had overheard a conversation. Two Harcourt execs talking by the elevators after hours, too distracted to notice the janitor behind the trash cart. They mentioned a trial. A protein compound. A possible breakthrough. They called it A.N.T.47. Marcus remembered that name like a brand on his brain. He didn't have a PhD. He didn't need one. He had a mission. Every night, he'd sweep more than just floors. He swept offices, conference tables, and, most importantly, shred bins. He'd take bags of torn documents home, pour them out on the kitchen floor, and piece them together like jigsaw puzzles. Tape. Flashlight. Patience. And what he found. Pages of internal memos. Emails printed and thrown away. Trial data with names blacked out. All referencing a classified clinical program hidden from the public, and even from the FDA. None of this made sense. Until he saw one name. Elliot Harcourt. That was the moment Marcus realized this wasn't just a trial. This was a cover-up. And if he didn't act, his daughter wouldn't make it to 9. The first time Marcus saw the name A.N.T. 47 in print, it wasn't on a report or a research brief. It was scribbled in pen, barely legible. On the corner of a crumpled post-it note stuck to a torn piece of printer paper. Most people would have tossed it without a second thought. Marcus stared at it like it was the Rosetta Stone. He found it in a janitor cart garbage bag on the 22nd floor, one of the restricted R&D levels, where clearance badges were double-checked and windows were blacked out. It was just a note, nothing more. But that was the moment it all started to line up. A.N.T. 47. He had heard the name whispered by executives. Seen it referenced in shredded test results. Now, it had a physical presence. Someone was writing about it outside official channels. That same night, he laid out the torn documents on his kitchen table. His daughter Layla was asleep in the next room, a heating pad under her wrists to ease the pain. He sat under the dim kitchen light, tape in one hand, pages spread like broken wings. And there it was again. A printed report, shredded but not crosscut, just enough to leave a trail. Marcus pieced it together, strip by strip, until he could read a few full paragraphs. The language was dense, medical, clinical, but Marcus had learned to read between the lines. The compound was being tested for neural restoration in early-stage degenerative conditions. That sounded promising. But there was more. Below that, in bold red type, a line chilled him to the bone. Phase 3 results pending internal audit. Unstable biomarker fluctuations observed. Mortality projection. Undisclosed. He didn't understand everything. But he understood that someone was hiding the data. Someone with access, with motive. And that someone did not want this compound going public until the numbers could be rewritten, repackaged, or buried. Then he found the name again. Elliot Harcourt. Listed not as a researcher. Not even as a trial administrator. He was listed as Subject 17. The CEO's brother. That was the moment Marcus knew this wasn't just about science. This was personal. And dangerous. Very dangerous. If they were hiding the risks from their own family, what did that mean for everyone else? Marcus never believed in coincidences. Not when it came to billion-dollar pharmaceutical companies. And especially not after what he saw that Thursday night. It was almost midnight. He had just finished cleaning the executive lounge when he spotted a folder that had been left, intentionally or not, on the corner of the long mahogany boardroom table. It was unmarked, except for a single line handwritten in ink across the top. Transfer of Subject 17. His pulse quickened. He glanced over his shoulder. The floor was empty. The security cameras had blind spots, and after 2 years working nights, he knew exactly where they were. He flipped the folder open. Most of the contents had already been cleared out. Only one sheet remained. A memo. Short. Direct. Chilling. Transport scheduled for 3 p.m. Friday by a secure Harcourt route. Final infusion to be administered at 1:30 p.m. sharp. Post-procedure containment advised until audit clearance is complete. It didn't say the name. But it didn't have to. Subject 17. Elliot Harcourt. The same name Marcus had seen on the trial documents. The same name his shredded paper puzzle had whispered about for weeks. The next morning, while scrubbing the tiles outside the executive elevator, he overheard something else. 2 R&D managers, talking low, unaware of the man crouched 10 feet away with a mop and bucket. "I can't believe she's actually going to see him," one said. "Olivia." The other replied. "Yeah. In person. Supposed to be hush-hush. Just her, no staff. They've got a driver taking her to the Brooklyn facility right after lunch." Marcus froze. It couldn't be coincidence. The CEO herself. Going to the secondary lab. The same day. The same time as the scheduled transport. The same facility where the final trial was being wrapped. She was going to witness it. Sign off on it. Maybe even end it. And the worst part? She didn't know. She didn't know what Marcus knew. That the data was dirty. That her own brother was being used, not healed. That this wasn't medicine, it was containment dressed up as hope. At that moment, Marcus didn't care about protocol, or safety, or what would happen to his job. All he knew was this: if she got in that car, there might be no turning back. Friday, 2:47 p.m. The streets outside Harcourt Biomed pulsed with the energy of Manhattan. Horns blared. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance. The sun bounced off polished glass towers and steel rims, casting sharp reflections onto the sidewalks. Marcus stood across the street, hidden in plain sight, dressed in his gray janitor's uniform. His heart thudded in his chest like a war drum. He clutched a folded sheet of paper in one hand, his last piece of evidence, and stared at the building entrance like it was a gate to another world. Then he saw her. Olivia Harcourt. Surrounded by two bodyguards in dark suits, a Bluetooth device in her ear, tablet in hand. She moved like someone born to command. And she was headed straight for the car. A sleek black Lincoln Town car waited at the curb. The driver stood by the rear door, holding it open. Everything about the scene was choreographed, smooth, silent. Like a closing scene in a movie. Marcus's voice caught in his throat. This was the moment. If he said nothing, she'd get in, and everything would be over. So he ran. Bursting from the crowd, he dashed into the street, dodging a delivery van and cutting between lanes. A cab skidded to a halt inches from his hip, the driver yelling something he couldn't hear. He didn't care. He had one chance. One sentence. "Ma'am, don't get in the car." The shout cut through the noise of the city like a blade. Everything stopped. Olivia turned, startled. Her hand froze on the car door handle. Her security detail reacted instantly, one stepping in front of her, the other rushing Marcus like a linebacker. People on the sidewalk turned. Phones came up. A few started filming. Marcus raised both hands. "Please," he begged. "You're walking into a setup. The trial, the transfer, it's not what you think." The guard slammed him against the car hood. "I'm not a threat," Marcus gasped. "I work here. Ask her. I clean her floors." Olivia's eyes locked onto him, not with fear, with focus. Her mind calculating, processing. And then he said two words. Two words no janitor should ever know. Subject 17. That's when Olivia Harcourt did something no one expected. She stepped back from the car and said four words that flipped the entire building on its head. "Bring him to me." The hallway was silent. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that hums in your ears when something unnatural is happening. Olivia Harcourt walked 3 paces behind her lead security officer, her heels clicking softly on polished marble. Marcus walked between 2 guards, wrists free but posture tense. He didn't speak. Not yet. They entered a private elevator that skipped all public floors and stopped at level 49, an executive suite restricted to C-level personnel and board members. The moment the doors closed, Olivia turned to her assistant and said, "Clear my schedule." Completely. The assistant nodded and stepped off before the doors slid shut again. Marcus was ushered into a glass-walled conference room that overlooked Midtown. The skyline looked distant, almost fake, like a backdrop in a movie set. Olivia stood at the far end of the room, arms crossed, silent. "Start talking," she said. Marcus took a breath. He reached into his uniform pocket and slowly pulled out a folded, dog-eared printout. He placed it on the glass table and stepped back. "I found this in a trash bin," he said. 20th floor. Executive corridor. Olivia stepped forward cautiously. The paper was wrinkled, but readable. Subject 17. Final phase clearance. Transfer authorization approved. She blinked. Once. "You know what that means?" she asked, her voice even, but sharper now. "I think I do," Marcus said. "And I think you don't." Olivia looked up, her eyes like ice before a storm. You're a janitor. How do you know any of this? Because my daughter has what your brother has, Marcus replied, steady. And I've been watching, listening, piecing together everything you've been told not to question. There it was. A crack. Not in her composure, but in her armor. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. Her breath shortened. You said subject 17, she said softly. No one outside the trial should know that designation. I do, Marcus answered. And I know what's happening at the Brooklyn facility isn't treatment. It's erasure. Olivia stared at him for a long time. Then she picked up the paper and read it again. This time, she didn't see protocol. She saw betrayal. And for the first time in a long time, Olivia Harcourt began to doubt her own company. The door to the glass-walled conference room shut with a soft click, sealing out the noise of the city below. Olivia Harcourt stood at one end of the long table, Marcus at the other. No more guards. No assistants. Just two people who, by all rights, should have never shared a room. Olivia broke the silence. Start from the beginning. And don't waste my time. Marcus nodded slowly, then took a breath that felt like it reached down into his soul. My daughter's name is Layla, he began. She's 8. Bright. Funny. She wants to be an astronaut. He paused. 6 months ago, she started losing her grip strength. Then came the tremors. Doctors said it was synaptic regression disorder. Same diagnosis as your brother. Olivia's eyes narrowed. You shouldn't know that. I shouldn't know a lot of things, Marcus replied. But I do. He unfolded a second sheet of paper, pieced together from shredded strips, patched with tape, fragile like old parchment. He placed it gently on the table. It's not just one trial. It's 2. Olivia stepped closer, scanning the page. The public version. The one approved by regulators. And then there's the internal stream. A side project. Same drug name. Different data. Different how? She asked. Marcus looked her dead in the eye. Your brother's response wasn't improving. It was collapsing. The compound, A.N.T47. It triggers a spike in neural regeneration, yes. But the rebound? It burns through healthy tissue faster than it repairs. They called it volatility. I call it slow-motion failure. He pointed to a line buried near the bottom of the document. Projected survivability post-phase 3, less than 12%. Olivia stared at the figure. It felt like the floor shifted under her. No one brought this to me, she said, half to herself. They didn't need to, Marcus said. Because if you never knew, you'd keep funding it. Keep selling the story. You weren't a liability until now. And you? Olivia asked. Why risk everything? Your job? Your freedom? Marcus didn't blink. Because if this trial kills my daughter, or your brother, and I knew I could have stopped it, I wouldn't be able to live with that. For a moment, the silence between them wasn't empty. It was full. Full of fear. Full of truth. And full of a decision Olivia Harcourt could no longer avoid. The following morning, Olivia Harcourt sat alone in her corner office, the skyline of New York stretching out behind her like a painted wall. She stared down at a printed report, one she wasn't supposed to have. Marcus had left it with her. It was incomplete, patched together from fragments, but unmistakably real. Names. Numbers. Internal memos. And tucked near the back, a short list of active trial subjects still housed at Harcourt's private research facility in Brooklyn. Subject 17 was listed first. Elliot Harcourt. Ho Brezer. It wasn't just theory anymore. It wasn't just whispers in the dark. It was happening. Right now. That night, Olivia broke protocol. She didn't notify the board. She didn't involve legal. Instead, she took a discreet route out of the building, met Marcus in a parking structure 2 blocks away, and together they drove to the Brooklyn facility. She wore no badge. No title. Just a black jacket and a mind full of questions. The facility looked like any other Harcourt campus. Modern, clean, secure. But to Marcus, it looked like something else entirely. It looked like containment. They entered through a back service door, using a maintenance keycard Marcus had swiped months ago and never returned. Inside, the halls were dim, quiet, monitored but not watched. No one expected the CEO to walk in through the janitor's entrance. They moved through corridors until they reached a restricted wing marked only by a blue light and a silent camera. Marcus stopped. "This is it," he said. Olivia nodded. Her hands were cold. She placed her palm on the biometric scanner. It beeped once. The door unlocked. Inside was a sterile room, lined with monitoring equipment and glass partitions. And at the center, on a medical bed surrounded by 4 drips, cables, and blinking monitors, was her brother, Elliot. He looked empty, alive, but pale, still, as if suspended between life and something else. She moved to him, slowly, afraid the moment might collapse if she moved too fast. The monitors beeped softly. One 4-bag glowed amber. Another was nearly empty. And there, on the floor beneath the bed, sat a metal waste bin filled with other bags, unmarked, discarded. "Why is he still here?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Marcus knelt beside the bin. "Because he's not a patient," he said. "He's the product." The realization hit Olivia like a punch to the chest. Her brother, Elliot Harcourt, wasn't in recovery. He wasn't in treatment. He was being harvested. The amber liquid in the 4? It wasn't medication. It was data. Neural material. And he wasn't the only one. She turned to Marcus, who had already stepped toward the monitor bank, scanning through the active feeds. Every room was labeled not by name, but by number. Every person inside was hooked to machines. Silent. Drained. "Are they all trial subjects?" she asked. Marcus nodded grimly. "At least the ones who survived the earlier phases." Olivia felt the bile rise in her throat. This wasn't a clinical study. This was extraction. She moved back to her brother's bedside. His breathing was shallow. His skin cool. "We have to move him," she said. "Now." Marcus looked at her. "If we trigger the alarms, they'll shut the whole wing down. Mock it. Clean it. Clean it." She didn't need him to explain. In biotech, cleaning wasn't about sterilizing surfaces. It was about erasing evidence. No witnesses. No survivors. He pulled a rolling gurney from the supply alcove. They moved quickly but carefully, disconnecting Elliot from the unnecessary monitors, leaving only what was essential to keep him stable. Olivia took one last look around the room. That's when she saw it, a security camera above the ceiling bent, its red light blinking slowly. "They already know we're here," she said. Marcus grabbed the emergency access badge clipped to a lab coat on the wall. "Then we stop playing quiet." They wheeled the gurney into the hall and turned toward the freight elevator. Every light felt like a spotlight. Every corner held the weight of watching eyes. Then came the voice over the loudspeaker. "Unauthorized movement detected in Sector 3. All staff report to station. Level 4 lockdown in 90 seconds. "Nov," Olivia snapped. The elevator dinged open. Marcus hit the emergency override. The door slammed shut behind them. They descended in silence. "One's here. 2. Then the lights flickered. The elevator stopped. Locked between levels. "No," Olivia whispered. Marcus pulled open the access panel. They cut power. Outside, footsteps echoed in the stairwell. They were out of time. Inside that steel box, with her brother unconscious and men coming to bury the truth, Olivia Harcourt made a decision. "We go through the shaft," she said. Marcus looked at her like she was crazy. "I hope you're good at climbing," she added. And then they moved. The elevator shaft was pitch black, cold, and lined with dust. Olivia Harcourt climbed first, one hand gripping the narrow steel ladder, the other guiding the rolling four-pole connected to her brother's fragile frame. Below her, Marcus pushed the gurney from the stalled car into the service alcove, careful not to tip the portable heart monitor blinking in weak pulses. Above them, the echo of boots. Fast. Tactical. Getting closer. You sure this ladder goes all the way up? Olivia asked, her breath tight. It goes to the third-floor mechanical deck, Marcus said. There's a backup exit to the alley. But we've got to hurry. They climbed in silence. Every second counted. By the time they reached the hatch on the mechanical floor, Olivia's hands were raw, her jacket streaked with dust. Marcus forced the old door open with a grunt, revealing a narrow hallway lined with silent ductwork and flickering fluorescent bulbs. That's when they heard it, a voice from the comms channel mounted to the wall. Sector clear. Subject 17 is no longer in his bed. Repeat, Subject 17 is mobile. Execute protocol redline. Olivia froze. She knew that phrase. Redline was a security override designed for one purpose: irreversible disposal. Not containment. Not transfer. Termination. Her brother was now a liability. She looked at Marcus. They're not going to stop. They don't have to, he said. Unless we make it public. They reached the exit door. It was locked with a manual bar. Olivia looked back at her brother, unconscious on the gurney, his chest barely rising. This was it. She could call for a Harcourt security team. Sweep it under the rug. Protect the brand. Or she could burn it all down. Her eyes locked with Marcus's. What would you do, she asked, if it were Layla on that gurney? Marcus didn't blink. The same thing you're about to do. She picked up her phone. Not the company line. Her personal one. She scrolled to a name she hadn't contacted in over 5 years. FBI. Director Evans. She hit call. Director, this is Olivia Harcourt. I have a situation. It involves illegal human trials, corporate fraud, and attempted murder. She paused, glancing down at Elliot. And I have proof. On the other end of the line, silence. Then a steady voice. We're listening. And just like that, the choice was made. By Monday morning, Harcourt Biomed was no longer a sealed fortress of silence. It was a crime scene. Federal agents in windbreakers roamed the halls, collecting hard drives, boxing up files, and escorting executives out of their corner offices with tight jaws and pale faces. The Birkeland facility had been locked down, its operating licenses suspended. The FDA, Department of Justice, and 2 Senate subcommittees were now involved. The news broke faster than the company's PR team could even attempt to spin it. Illegal human testing. Concealed mortality rates. Misuse of patient data. It wasn't just a scandal. It was betrayal on a national scale. And at the center of it all stood Olivia Harcourt, no longer hiding behind press statements or legal teams. At a live-streamed press conference, she stepped to the podium wearing no makeup, no jewelry, just a navy blue blouse and the weight of everything she'd learned. I believed in the science, she said. But I was lied to. We all were. My brother was used as a living lab sample. And so were others. Gasps echoed through the room. Olivia didn't flinch. We funded something promising. What we got was something criminal. And I will not be a CEO who pretends ignorance equals innocence. Behind her, images appeared on the screens, photos of the trial subjects, reports Marcus had uncovered, and the real data from Phase 3. Reporters shouted questions. Olivia answered each one with calm resolve. Yes, charges would be filed. Yes, bonuses had been frozen. Yes, she had personally invited the FBI into her company's servers. Meanwhile, Marcus Bell stood just out of frame. Not a janitor. Not an employee. A whistleblower. A thawser. The man who risked everything. Layla stood beside him, her small hand tucked into his. She was wearing a hoodie 2 sizes too big and a wide-eyed look like she was trying to understand why people kept whispering her name. Later that day, Olivia announced the creation of a new non-profit, the Bell Harcourt Foundation, a research trust, publicly funded, independently monitored. Its first mission, develop a safe and transparent treatment for synaptic regression disorder, starting with Layla Bell and Elliot Harcourt as the first 2 patients. A reporter asked why she named it after a janitor. Olivia smiled for the first time in days. Because he cleaned up the mess, she said. And he reminded us what real leadership looks like. Weeks passed. The headlines faded. The stock market adjusted. Executives were replaced. Lawyers got paid. But the real change, the one that mattered, happened quietly. In a sunlit room at the Bell Harcourt Foundation, 2 patients sat side by side. Layla Bell and Elliot Harcourt. One just beginning her life. The other reclaiming his. Both connected by a diagnosis, a near-death experience, and now, a second chance. Olivia visited every Friday. She no longer wore her title like armor. She spoke softly. She listened more. And on one visit, as Layla showed her a drawing, bright stars, big planets, her name written on the moon, Olivia asked her something simple. What do you want to be when you grow up? Layla smiled. Alive, she said. That answer stayed with Olivia longer than any investor report or quarterly projection ever had. And Marcus? He returned to work. Not at Harcourt Biomed, but at the foundation named after him. He didn't need a title or a corner office. He had something better. He had his daughter. He had the truth. And he had the knowledge that sometimes the most powerful person in a company isn't the one behind the glass desk, but the one who knows when to say, loud and clear, this isn't right. That's the real Black story. Not about status, but about courage. About doing what's right when no one's watching, and especially when they are. So here's the question I'll leave you with. What would you do if you saw something wrong, something buried, ignored, or dressed up as something noble? Would you walk past it? Or would you do what Marcus did? If this story made you think, if it stirred something in you, drop a comment below. I want to know what part hit you the hardest. And if you haven't already, tap that subscribe button so we can keep uncovering stories like this together. Because the truth? It's not always loud. But when someone finally listens, it changes everything. Thanks for being here.